Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? Okay, today let's just get right into this video. I have a lot to say about this topic today. I haven't talked about Raw Beauty Christie. It feels like it's been a while since I've made a Raw Beauty Christie video. So I watched her newest video yesterday, well, late last night, and then I took some notes. And I wanted to come over here and talk about it today because for those of you that know, and those of you that don't know, I have made a few Raw Beauty Christie videos in the last couple years. So let me kind of give you my history. Now, you're going to want to wait for the duration of this video before you jump right in and start leaving a comment about, whatever. So let me just kind of give you my history of my relationship or my watching or my knowing of Raw Beauty Christie through the years. So I found Christie several years ago. I found Christie, God, I don't even know how, probably my first year of doing drama commentary on YouTube. People would mention other beauty influencers other than, the top 5 that I was covering at that time, which was, Jeffrey and Manny and Laura, and I don't even think I was covering Toddy at that point, James Charles. And so, Nikita Dragon, I was covering her a lot at that point. And so, Jaclyn Hill, and people would mention other people, and people were mentioning Raw Beauty Christie. Raw Beauty Christie was really getting big at that time, and she was under 1 million subscribers. And so I started watching Christie pretty regularly at that time, and I think I followed her on social media. I think she followed me on social media. We messaged each other a couple times, but it wasn't really a lot. It wasn't much. Through the years, we really haven't had that many conversations. I remember she went on a brand trip, and during the brand trip, there was a fight that occurred. This is probably the very first time I ever covered Christie, like, within any kind of radius of drama. She was on a brand trip. I don't remember what the brand trip was, but she was doing karaoke. And I believe the song that she was doing is I Will Survive, but I could be wrong about that. And it's this clip of 2 other influencers that are fighting to the right of her while she's doing karaoke. And I covered that in a drama video. And I think that's kind of like when I got her attention, or like she noticed me or something, because it was so hilarious to me. I love that clip to this day. It's like, it's just, if you've ever seen the clip, I would put it in here if I could find it, but I don't know where in my phone it is. I'm sure I have it somewhere. But it's this clip of this bar at this like resort, and all the influencers are there, and there's this fight that occurs. Somebody pulls somebody's hair, and then they're on the floor. And Christie just continues to sing and is like bucking while she's singing. It's hilarious. Okay. So I think that was the very first time that I like really talked about her in a drama commentary channel video. And then I just, continued to follow her and kind of watch her for a while. I have a channel called Peterisms, and on my Peterisms channel, I like read meditations, which are daily affirmations. And I talk about a lot of lessons I've learned in my life. I talk a lot about grief over there. It's not a highly viewed channel. I get maybe 300 or 400 views a video over there. I still post pretty regularly over there. But I talk about grief. I talk about being in recovery. For those of you that do not know, my sobriety birthday is December 17th of 1994. So if I should make it, we don't borrow time in recovery. So if I should make it to next Tuesday, a week from today, then I will have had 30 years of continuous sobriety. And so I talk a lot about sobriety issues over there, just mistakes I've made in my life, what I've learned, taking accountability, responsibility, making amends for things like that. And there was at one point that she was in a video and she talked about that channel, which was very gracious and very sweet of her to do. I didn't even realize that she watched that channel, And so she shouted out that channel and people started watching it. I think a lot of those people have probably died off now because they're probably diehard Raw Beauty Christie fans. And so, anyway, Christie and I kind of just, from afar, kind of like watched each other a little bit back and forth and didn't really interact with each other. She had been very supportive of me at times when, I congratulatory of my successes and, reached, out to me or, social media wise, as far as like when I was going through, really horrible things in life. And I did the same with her. And it was very superficial level relationship. It was never anything like where we talked on the phone or, we had these intense conversations or anything like that. at the time, I don't remember the timing of all of this, but after she did the Jaclyn Hill video where she brought up the microscope and stuff, she started to gain a lot of subscribers. And on my channel, back in the day, I used to do this drama opera I would sing. And I would do this drama opera of 2016. And I was Jeffree Star, Jaclyn Hill, Manny MUA, Nikki Tutorials. And anyway, at the end of it, I added Raw Beauty Christie, and I used to talk about, let's get her to 1 million subscribers. It was a huge thing on my channel. I talked about it for a long time. I really wanted to get Christie to 1 million subscribers. And, I mean, not me. It wasn't me, but I really felt like she deserved to have so many more subscribers that she had. And one of the reasons why I really believed that was because she was a unique voice within the beauty influencer space. She was something that I was not witnessing by what I was covering. The people that I was covering were very superficial. I don't think that they were super relatable. I don't think that they had lifestyles that were super relatable. And it's interesting because I'm somebody that just kind of goes with my gut reaction. Raw Beauty Christie was, before she, okay, hold on a second. Let me just make the statement and then I'll explain it. Raw Beauty Christie was Michaela Nogueira before Michaela Nogueira sold out, okay? And what I mean by that is that Michaela Nogueira was just this regular girl that had worked in an Ulta store, although that's not Raw Beauty Christie's story, but she had worked in this Ulta store and she just loved doing makeup and she loved, you know, doing these TikToks and stuff, and then she got famous. I think Michaela was very relatable at the beginning because she was just like everybody else, right? What happened over time was she kind of sold out. She kind of sold out on who she really was, and it became about the money and the sponsorships and all that kind of stuff. Not that I'm not saying that that's not part of the influencer world, because sponsorships and making money and all that kind of stuff is, but I think anybody that's watched Michaela for a while knows that where she started and where she is now are two completely different things. Raw Beauty Christie was that relatable person back in 2016 or 2017, long before Michaela Nogueira ever was on TikTok or anywhere in the beauty influencer space. It would be interesting. I don't know if Michaela has really said a whole lot about Christie, but I would believe that Christie is probably somebody that Michaela watched. More so than, I mean, I know that Jaclyn Hill's always been kind of like her mentor, who she's looked up to. But Christie would have been somebody that I think at that time that would have been more relatable to Michaela. Because if you go back and you look at pictures of Michaela when she was working in the Ulta store, she wasn't all glammed up all the time and things like that. And so that was who Christie was. Christie was giving very honest reviews and, you know, getting on camera, and she was saying the things that other people didn't want to say. And so she was basically the voice of reason within the beauty influencer space, and it was refreshing. And a lot of people found it to be very refreshing that she was this, you know, fresh voice. She was willing to say what other people weren't willing to say, because she didn't at that time seem to really care about the money and the sponsorships and the sell and all that kind of stuff. That's not what she seemed to be about. Yes, she went on the brand trips, and why shouldn't she? She got invited like everybody else. She should go, you know, but yes, she took sponsorships, but it wasn't like that was what it was all about. And she wasn't also like, there was a period, you know, within the beauty influencer space when everybody was like, oh, Birkin bags and private jets and all this kind of stuff. And then that got kind of old, and Christie never really sold out to that. There were times that I felt that she seemed a little jealous of all of that, but that never really seemed to align with who Christie was to begin with. Like, it would have surprised me, okay, if Christie had gotten, you know, let's say 5 to 1 million subscribers, and then all of a sudden was flying around in private jets and was, you know, wearing Gucci left and right. That just, I mean, it's interesting that she says those things about like Jeffree Star and stuff, because that was never who Christie was going to be to begin with. I think even if Christie had 2 million subscribers, I think she'd still be living in a gnome home in Washington and doing what she's doing now. I really believe that about Christie. I really, truly do. I don't know that I think she would have been taken by all of that, which is, it's hard when you're, you know, in this new world and all this kind of stuff. I think that's hard to stay true to who you are. And I think that's one of the things that I really liked about Christie through the years, is that she seemed to stay true to who she was. Okay, so then the Shane Dawson, Jeffree Star beauty industry documentary, 20 parts, comes out, cash grab. And Shane Dawson's like, I don't know who to interview or who to put in this thing besides the beauty influencers that I already know. Like, you know, he went and met with Tati Westbrook and whatever. And people were reaching out to Shane on a pretty regular basis and being like, you need to interview Raw Beauty Christie. Like, she's a fresh voice. I think it was very divisive in retrospect, and maybe he did, and I don't know. But I think it's very divisive that Shane Dawson never did include Kristi. And I think that Kristi would have offered a completely different perspective that would have aligned with them having the biggest sale in the history. So for Shane to put her in there, Shane's documentary in retrospect was really never about the beauty space. It was really a QVC ad. To have Kristi in there telling some truths in the beauty space, especially when she was somebody that was so counter to Jeffree Star at that time, I think would have really, it would have really been telling the truth. It would have been, this is where when at that time people were like, oh, Shane Dawson's a genius. Shane Dawson is genius for putting together the best makeup ad that's ever existed in the last 20 years on YouTube, because that's what that is. That 10-part series is a makeup ad. It's selling for the palette, which is why I call it a cash grab. But it is not a documentary about the beauty influencer space, okay? He doesn't interview people that have 100 subscribers or 5,000 dedicated subscribers that are doing dupes, that are doing... I mean, it's not a conclusive documentary at all. It is a selling documentary, a QVC ad for the palette that they release at the end of it. So had he included Raw Beauty Christie, of which a lot of people at the time, it would have really boosted her career. It would have taken her over. I think probably a little bit, her bitterness towards the beauty influencer space is that she has been neglected a lot by the people that got big. I think to some degree, I remember interviewing years and years ago, Johnny Boy XO, and saying to her, why do you think that people are so attracted to you? And she said, I think real knows real. I think at that time, Kristi was so real, she terrified the people that weren't. And I think that, and I'm being completely objective because this video that I watched of hers yesterday really kind of like changed my perspective and really made me get in my head and think about things. So I'm trying to be very, very fair in this video, okay? I think people just think, oh, you hate Raw Beauty Christie and it just comes out of nowhere. That's not it at all. You know, I think that's an easy answer to things, to just say, oh, you hate somebody. I think a lot of people hate people for no reasons or because of one reason or something that pissed them off. That's not who I am, and that would probably be an easier answer than me explaining to you how I'm disappointed with somebody's actions through the years. I made a statement earlier in the year and I said, Kristi might be the biggest disappointment of this year to me. Well, after watching her video yesterday, I think it's important for me to explain that and also explain the history. So I was disappointed in Shane Dawson at that time for not including Kristi in the documentary. I think at that time I even said something to him about it. I'm almost positive that I did. Because it would have been this helping moment for Kristi. I also think she earned her space. And I think that was... I don't know, we've never talked about it. I mean, I only ever had one phone conversation with her, but I think that it would have probably... I think that might have been part of the turning point for her, where she was like, I'm never going to be in this cool kids group. You know, I'm never going to sit at the popular kids table. And I don't know that I even care anymore, because maybe that's not where I really wanted to sit all along, but maybe I thought I had to sit there to get where I needed to get. I don't know if that's how she felt, but that's kind of almost how it seemed. And then Kristi got pregnant, and Kristi started talking a lot about that on her channel. Well, a lot of people... I took no issue with this. I love watching influencers, creators, I consider myself a dude with a camera, whatever, talk about real shit in their life. That's what I enjoy watching. The get readies with me that I've watched for years, covering it over here, whatever, that's just kind of like background noise to me of listening to somebody tell the stories of their life. That's what's attractive to me, is to hear somebody tell the stories of their life. So when Kristi was getting on video and she was sharing what she was going through and talking about postpartum and talking about what she was struggling with and all this kind of stuff, that to me, in all honesty, was more attractive to me than everything else. I love the makeup videos that she did because she seemed sincere and genuine in them. A different voice, a fresh voice, but it didn't take away anything that I loved about Kristi. I think a lot of people at that time were kind of like, enough of this. Like, I came for the makeup, I didn't come for all this, right? But for me personally, that's something that I am attracted to when I watch YouTubers. I like when people share a lot of personal stuff, overshare. I like when people overshare stuff. I'm a reality TV junkie, and so when I'm watching somebody on their YouTube channel and they're so genuine and authentic to open their hearts up, it almost was a point for me when I almost kind of started liking Kristi more, in all honesty. I remember at that time she did, well, it was maybe like a year and a half after that, because she got a lot of criticism for that, where people were like, this is not what we came for, we didn't come for that. And Kristi said, you know, if you change your channel, you're going to lose a lot of people. Like, if you change the direction of your channel, you're going to lose a lot of people, because people come for one thing and then all of a sudden you're doing something else. I 100% think that that's the honest God's truth. You know, as soon as I started doing AITA and a true crime video here and there, you know, people weren't that invested anymore, and I get it, right? And And she started doing, you know, changing. It's one of the reasons why I just start a channel and do something different over there instead of including it over on one channel. That way people can go to whatever channel they want to watch. So she started talking about a lot of personal stuff, a lot of stuff that was going on in her life at that time and whatever. She also started doing these opinion videos where she would share opinions. And through the years, she shared a lot of opinions. She shared about the beauty influencer space, and she has shared about what she's known and how she's felt about it. She shared about, I mean, the last one I think I watched was the 8-passenger thing. One before that, she hasn't really done them in quite some time because I think the last one really burned her in the ass, and it was when she did the Colleen Ballinger one. Well, what happened with that was that Christy, this was a year ago, well, 2 years ago now, I think it was. I don't even know the timing on it, but Christy was coming out and talking about Colleen Ballinger. I just happened to go look on Christy's Instagram and things like that, and Christy had posts, like, I noticed that she was still following James Charles, and that she was liking posts of his on James Charles. And it really surprised me, in all honesty, because I thought, Christy has a child, Christy takes very strong stances against this stuff, she's now talked about Colleen Ballinger and taken a strong stance against Colleen Ballinger. I'm really confused about what's going on, okay? Now, in full transparency, because somebody will bring this up, later, I just want to show how easy it is, okay? Later, somebody pointed out that I was following James Charles at the same time that I called Christy out on TikTok. And that I had also, on a video from like 4 years previous to that, I had pinned a comment on one of, that he had left on one of my videos. I had pinned a James Charles comment. Well, I came out within 24 hours when that was brought to my attention, and I unfollowed everybody on TikTok. I don't believe even to this day, I don't use TikTok, that I follow anybody on TikTok, and I blocked James Charles on YouTube so that he can't even leave a comment on my channel, and that comment is no longer pinned. So, and I even addressed it in a video, just to show and to prove how easy it is to address a situation like this. And what I said was, I do not want to follow James Charles. I do not want any support whatsoever. I was not aware that I followed him on TikTok. I was not aware that I had a pinned comment on YouTube. So let me make it right. And I unfollowed everybody off of TikTok and blocked him on YouTube so he could no longer leave a comment on my video. And that way it took away any comments that he had left in my video, and I addressed it with my audience. Because I think that's the right thing to do. You know? And even though people still bring it up to this day, I'm like, okay, but I turned around within 24 hours of doing that. It wasn't even 24 hours. I think it was like 12 hours, you know? Where other people would never find the necessity to do that, right? But I was in my head, and I felt bad because it was being compared to me calling out Raw Beauty Christie. But what I wanted to show was, if Christie really cared, it would have been so easy for her to just get in a video and say, I was liking pictures of his, and the more I realized about this and the more I learned, then that wasn't the right thing to do. And I have unfollowed him, and I don't want to support him. Or she could come out and say, I don't think there is anything wrong with what he did, and I am going to continue to follow him. I am going to continue to support him. But she didn't do either one of those things, okay? What she did was she reached out to me on Instagram, and she asked me if we could talk about this situation, all right? Now, there's been a lot of confusion since I've talked about this. People are like, well, Peter reached out to her. I never reached out to Christy. I made a video about it, okay? Christy reached out to me. Christy reached out to me in DMs on Twitter. I'm not even active on Twitter anymore. So if you want to reach out to me on Instagram or email, but I'm not on Twitter anymore. Like, I mean, my account's up there, but I'm not active on it at all. So she reached out to me and she asked me, I could probably pull it up for you right now. She reached out to me and she asked me if I would be willing to, hold on a second, I will tell you the exact date of it. Let's see if I can even find her on here. Okay, go in here. So, on September 4th of 2023, she messaged me and said, hey, Peter, is there any way we could chat? I can either message you if you'd prefer or FaceTime call if you are available too. And I said, yeah, we can just talk on the phone. And I gave her my phone number. And she said, sure, can I call now or are you available on any specific time? And I said, you can call me now. So that was, and I believe that was like Memorial Day or Memorial Day weekend. Before that, I'm just looking through and I'm not going to read them, but we had, you know, several more than several, I guess. But I mean, just certain DMs through the years talking about several different things on here. You know, I congratulated her at one point and said, you did a great job, Christy. Keep being yourself, on and on and on. So, I mean, and like March 31st of 2019, I said, you will hit 1 million this year, trust me. And she said, oh my God, I can't even imagine. I hope you're right. blah, 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 whatever. And I'm not going to get in and read all those because that's not fair to her. But because people have said that I reached out to Kristi, I never reached out to Kristi. I made a video. Kristi called me. We talked on the phone. I have no idea how long the phone call was. Half an hour to an hour, sometime in there. When the phone call started, I said to her, she was, it was nice. Hey, how are you? Whatever. I said to her, we had never talked before on the phone. And I said, this is your phone call. What do you want? And basically what she wanted suggestions on how to deal with this James Charles situation. She played it to me like she had no clue because of everything that was going on in her life. She knew that James Charles had gotten into a scandal, but she didn't really know what that scandal was. And she knew that he had been talked to some people, minors, but she didn't really know the full extent of it. She hadn't really watched Tati's video. She hadn't kept up with it, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. So we talked. She asked me for advice. I said, Kristi, it's not my place to tell you what to do. No, I'm calling you. I want suggestions. Because people have said that I told Kristi what to do. That is not how the phone call went, okay, whatsoever. And the reason I'm addressing this is because Kristi got in her video, at the beginning of her video, her newest video, and she said that if you share personal things, people will take it and they'll use it against you, okay? Well, I'm making it very clear how this phone call went. I did not tell Kristi what to do. I didn't tell her. She asked me for advice. I said, Kristi, if it was me, I would come out to my audience and I would just be transparent and tell them what happened. Like I did when somebody brought it to me that I was following James Charles on TikTok and that I had a pinned comment on YouTube. I turned around within 12 to 24 hours and I addressed it with my audience because I think that that's important, okay? So I said that to her. I said, why don't you just come out and address it with your audience? And she goes, she was like, do you think that I need to follow? I said, Kristi, I don't understand why you were liking pictures. She goes, I just go through and I just like all kinds of pictures on Instagram. I said, okay, that's problematic. So you might want to be careful of what you're liking because people are paying attention to that kind of stuff. And she goes, well, if I unfollow him, it's going to look performative. I go, it will only look performative if you don't come out and address it. And she goes, but it's going to look performative if I just all of a sudden unfollow him. But I want to unfollow him because I don't want to support that kind of behavior. Whatever. I don't even remember. It's been so long now. People are going to compare these videos. And what I said 3 years ago or 2 years ago is going to be completely different than what I said today. But this is basically what happened. And so she said, I told her, I said, just come out and be honest with your audience. Just explain it to him. Because she said to me, I met him at such and such con or fest or whatever, makeup fest in 2016. It was really nice. We exchanged some DMs, kind of kept up with each other through the years, but that was really it. I didn't really know a lot of what was going on. Okay. So she said to me at the end of the phone call, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your advice, blah, blah, blah. We had a very nice phone call, right? And she said, I think that I'm going to do exactly what you said. I'm going to turn around and make a video, unfollow him, whatever. Okay. So that happened. Well, she unfollowed him 2 days later and never has addressed it. To this day, has not addressed it. Has never said anything, okay? Now, there have been articles. Peter Monn is not the only person that's talked about this. There's been 20, 30 people that have talked about this. TikTokers that have talked about it that have gotten a lot more views than I've ever gotten on it, okay? There have been on and on and on. Well, when I went back and I looked, okay, at some of Kristi's videos, her opinion videos, what I realized was she straight up lied to me on the phone. I was watching her videos and she's mentioning Dramageddon. She's mentioning things that happened in there and I'm like, oh, she full on knew what was going on and continued to follow James Charles, okay? Even that, she could have got on video and she could have said, I knew everything that was going on. I followed it until it was brought to my attention. I really didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's kind of been on the back burner for me. But now that it's been brought to my attention, I want to unfollow James Charles and I want to be transparent and honest with my audience. It would have been nothing, okay? It would have been, in a day, it would have been forgotten. But she made it into this bigger thing than it had to be because she chose at that time. And I'm not talking about, there, I think, are things that influencers never need to address. Relationship issues, marriage issues, family issues, little stuff that happens, maybe a tweet that you tweet. That stuff we covered in 2016. But when you're talking about, you're coming out and talking about Colleen Ballinger and having a heavy stance, but yet you still continue to follow somebody that has similar behavior patterns and support that person by liking their pictures, that maybe is something that you might want to come out and address. I'm just saying, okay? So that was the first thing. And then she never came out and addressed it. Well, after about a week or two, I said in a video something to the effect of like, I'm waiting until a certain time, and if there's no video made by then I'm kind of done with it. People misunderstood that, and they said I was demanding and forcing Christy to come out. No, what I was saying was, okay, I was setting a boundary in my life, which is what we do, okay? And I was saying that if Christy didn't choose to come out and address this by then I could no longer continue to support her. I think that's fair, okay? It's just like saying to anybody else in your life, if you don't, this is somebody that I had interacted with, this is somebody I had supported for a long time, on and on and on. Okay. So, but people took that as me demanding something from Christy. I have never once, you will never find a video of me, and she can't claim on that phone call that I ever demanded. I never sent that phone call, and I've never sent a video. I demand that Christy come out and address this. I said I thought it would be good for her career, and I still stand by that, okay? Especially after watching this video of hers that I watched yesterday. So that was that. Then this summer, there were pictures that came out where her son had been aligned with this parade, this 4th of July parade, and was wearing a t-shirt that was of an anti-trans organization, and so I started covering that because a lot of people were sending it to me. That Christy was, apparently through family members, was aligning herself with this anti-trans organization and building a school on her property, and there was a lot of questions about this, and blah, blah. And I covered that extensively, okay? And I didn't, like, really understand why she wasn't addressing this. But because the catchphrase of Peter Demand shit caught on the first time, then this time people were like, oh, you're demanding things from Christy again. I wasn't demanding things. I didn't understand why Christy wasn't coming out and addressing it, okay? And yet again, I'm not talking about why she's not addressing, I don't know, something trivial, okay? Or even something serious that has to do with her marriage or something like that. I would never demand that somebody come out, and I would never ask for somebody to come out and discuss something like that. But this is a pretty serious issue, okay? We're now talking that on top of you supporting a known self-proclaimed predator, okay, that you've never come out and addressed, that you now also have these allegations of aligning yourself with an anti-LGBTQIA plus organization. You have a huge LGBTQIA plus audience group, so you would think that maybe you, and have used like the Life's a Drag palette and, you know, all that kind of stuff, that you might want to kind of come out and address this. Now, what's interesting to me about this in retrospect is that I watched her video from yesterday, which is this Q&A, and in there, she's talking a lot about religion, which we'll get to in just a second, but she says in there something to the effect of, I'm not a fundamentalist, because a lot of people are speculating that Christy's a fundamentalist. And she says, I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm the farthest thing from that. I'm all about love. Okay, so when I watched this part, and this is what we're going to get into in a second, that was so surprising to me was, I didn't understand why she just had never addressed that to begin with. That she could have come out in a video and she could have said, you guys listen, there's a lot of allegations. She could have even said, Peter Monn has said this in videos, but I wasn't the only one. Again, there were 30 people covering it, magazine articles that were written about it, a lot of TikTokers that were getting hundreds of thousands of views on it, that were talking about Christy supporting anti-LGBTQIA plus rhetoric, okay? And for those of you that do not live in the United States, and it's a huge issue anywhere in the world, but especially in the United States right now, okay? I mean, this is a huge issue. And so I talked a lot about it. I talked a lot about my story, talked a lot about stories of people that I know and things like that. It would have been very easy for her to get in a video at that time, yet again, and say to her audience transparently on a huge issue. I'm not talking about a small issue. I'm not talking about a trivial issue. I'm not talking about a deeply personal issue. I'm talking about an issue that affects her audience. For her to get out there and say, you guys, all this stuff that's being said about me is bullshit. I'm about love. I love everybody out there. I do not judge anybody, because she said this in her video yesterday. She didn't say it about trans issues. She didn't say it about anybody in the LGBTQI plus audience, but she said it. She said, I love all people. I don't judge people. I'm just learning and I'm searching. Okay? So it would have been easy for her to come out at that time. All right? One of the things I've noticed about Kristi in the last couple years, and this honestly has pushed me a little bit away, is that she seems a little, like, angry in some of her videos. Like, she has to come out and do this, and she has to come out and do that. And it goes back to when I watched a video of hers years ago where she was talking about, it was a Q&A video, and she's talking about Jeffree Star, and she goes, all the Gucci and PJs. It's like, I think it goes back to that, right? That Kristi has never, I feel like I'm coming to the end of this. Hold on, it stops at 30 minutes. It's going to stop, so hold on just a second. I feel like Kristi has always felt like she was more deserving of something that she didn't get because she didn't get the popularity and the fame that the other people did. And I 100% agree with that. I think that Christie should have gotten a lot more than she got. I really do, okay? But I think it goes back to her always, and she talks about it in this video that I watched of hers yesterday. I think it goes all the way back to her feeling like she never really kind of fit in. It was always looking on the outside, looking in, all right? Which in all honesty, when she started doing, she went back and forth because she started doing a lot of these personal videos, okay? And I even said at one point that I thought she should start another channel. People were like, she's got the Zach and Christie channel or whatever. And yeah, but she could start a personal channel where she's doing making bread and whatever. I actually think it would do very well. But she's doing like a makeup video because that's what she's getting sponsored for. Like this video that she did was sponsored. Thank you, Christie, for disclosing appropriately and proving to everybody out there how easy it is to disclose appropriately. I went through Toddy Westbrook's videos the other day. I hadn't looked in a while. Literally her past 10 videos all have affiliate links or are sponsored, and she doesn't disclose appropriately in any of them. So when people want to tell me that Toddy Westbrook is disclosing appropriately, please go look at her last 10 videos. Not one of those videos has the paid placement in the corner for the first 10 seconds. That is a button that you hit when you publish your video. Nor does she have it disclosed appropriately. It's hidden at the very bottom, okay? So Christie demonstrates how easy it is to do. She completely disclosed appropriately on this video. So thank you for that as a side note. But I feel like Christie's always kind of like felt like she was on the outside looking in. But then what she did, she started changing up her videos. Well, I think that she gets paid sponsorships to do makeup videos, like when she's doing a get ready with me or using things like that. This was a Loom, this was for like Loom deodorant, was a sponsorship, which is actually a pretty big product. So, you know, I think that she gets paid on ones that she thinks she's like, this one was, I mean, you get to pick the video. People don't say this is what you're going to do your video about when you do a sponsorship. I think because she did a Q&A, and the video is called, hold on just a second, the video is called, This Gets Really Deep, Answering What You wanted to know. I think she thinks a lot of people are going to come over there and they're going to think she's going to answer all these questions. But the thing is, at this point, we know Christie's not going to answer any of the questions. She's made that very clear. She's not going to talk about the trans stuff. She's not going to talk about James Charles. We already know that, okay? The video in 24 hours, her videos have not been doing great lately, and she kind of makes a joke about it, you know? I mean, it's not like my videos are banging out either 50,000 views. I mean, listen, I get it, right? And I think one thing that she and I do have in similar is that we both try to do some different stuff on our channel, and I think we've screwed the pooch on it. I really do think we did. So anyway, but like her videos are not doing great. Like the last one, 19 hours ago, 26,000 views. Gardening with my cat in the bomb cyclone vlog 2 weeks ago, 21,000 views. I did not watch that, but I have to tell you that I think that's the most fantastic title ever. 49,000 views. I don't know what I want to do in life. Let's get ready and chat about it. And she's talking about burnout, the one before, 39,000 views. So this one, by the end, will probably be at about 35, 40,000 views. Okay, this gets really deep, answering what you wanted to know. So, so Christie does makeup videos because she knows that those will be the ones that get views because of this people. That's how she got her audience, was through makeup videos. But I think she doesn't really, like, I don't think she really cares about that anymore. And she's kind of made that clear. Like, she doesn't really want to do a whole lot of that. Every once in a while, she'll be like, let's get glam. She's actually pretty authentic about it. You know, Jaclyn Hill will be like, I don't want to do makeup anymore. And the next day, she's like, I want to do a fun glam look. It's like Christie will be like, I haven't done one in a while, and I'm just kind of sitting around, and I'm getting paid to do the sponsorship, so why not get into glam? I mean, she's pretty honest about it, okay? So, I wanted to set the preface of explaining my history with Robbie Christie before, because of which I'm sure there will be a lot of, like, you know, discussion about that, but I know the history of my relationship with Christie before that. What happened was, I was somebody that really loved Christie, okay? Really liked what she spoke of and spoke about. There was a lot about her. And it wasn't even, I've said this in so many videos, especially my vlog, I think one of the saddest things I think has happened in our world is that a lot of what we put out there in the world is for the most viral likes, or let's put the statement that's going to be the juiciest out there so most people follow it and whatever. I think we've stopped having conversations, you know? when I was in my 20s and I was in my 30s, we had lots of conversations over coffee at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning about all kinds of issues, political issues, religious issues, philosophical issues. We talked about shit. And just because we didn't agree with somebody didn't mean that we didn't have the conversation. We still had that conversation. I have learned probably more about this world from people whose experiences I will never live, or people that have different opinions than mine because of their experiences that are lived differently than mine. And so it's important for us to listen to each other, all right? And it's not just that I have to be right or that I'm right about this or whatever. What bothered me about Christie was that as somebody that was so vocal, okay, and I thought offered such an important voice to the conversations, two issues that she was not willing to address, okay, was the James Charles situation, which was a huge issue within the beauty influencer space, and she had a lot of opinions about the beauty influencer space. And she was part of that now because she had followed him, she had liked pictures of him, blah, blah, blah. If it were a case, okay, that she really didn't know anything about it, like she told me, like when somebody brought it to me, I really did not know that I was following James Charles. Why would I keep that a secret? I unfollowed him everywhere else. I unfollowed most influencers off of everything, right? So why would I keep that one to follow him on TikTok? I can go in there and look at anybody else's TikToks, you know? I don't follow any of these people, and I go in and I find their stuff to this day. There's no reason for me to continue to follow him. Or, I don't know, what did people think I kept on going over to that one video where he had that pinned comment and be like, oh my God, James Charles, that pinned comment, I mean, I could care less, right? And that's kind of how I felt Christie felt about it. So I thought it would be so easy for her to come out and address it, but she chose not to. Because I think she was more worried about her career, her money at that time. Because after that, when I made my video, people started reaching out to me in the community, and they said, Christie has always been about the money. She plays it off that she's like living out in the woods in a gnome house, likes to make bread, but she's really all about the money. That might be true. I think in retrospect, because I've thought a lot about this, Christie might equate money to security and safety, okay? I think we all do that. I don't think Christie, the money for her is about private jets and Gucci and Louis Vuitton, okay? Which there's nothing wrong with that either. I think the money to her equals having security in her life, being able to take care of her family and her child and her husband and things like that. I think that's what the money is. Do I think she might have hustled like everybody else and maybe her hustle was a little bit more obvious? Yes, I do think that. There's not an influencer out there that in making it big in the bank that isn't hustling, okay? I'm just going to tell you that right now. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the problem is that we hold people to different standards. And so it happens to me all the time, okay? It happens to me. There are 10 drama channels out there that can get on, they can get online and they can say the most maddest shit in the entire world and nobody checks them for it, okay? But I'm held to a completely different standard, right? And then people are like, oh, Peter's the gatekeeper of this, or Peter's did this, or Peter tries to be the moral ground of that. Well, Christie's very similar to that. Christie's very similar to that. You know, Christie was somebody that had very well thought out ideas, and I listened to her, and I would sit there and watch her videos, and I'd be like, damn, she's got some good points on this. Not just about makeup, but about the world at large, about the makeup industry and the people and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, Christie's going to be held to a different standard, very similar to how I'm held to a different standard in the drama community, right? And this has been something I have known for a long time. I have seen people tweet out shit that if I tweeted out, I would be canceled for in a second. That's just a reality, okay? I know that. I'm fully aware of that, right? Okay, so, and that's fine. That's fine. That's how I built myself up, with saying statements like, remain teachable. Well, you're going to say a statement like that, people are going to throw it in your face, okay? They're going to say, well, now you need to remain teachable. I get that, right? I set myself up for it. Well, so did Christie. And I think that a lot of us, myself included, probably expect more out of Christie than I would somebody like Jeffree Star, in all reality. I don't really think that highly of Jeffree Star. I think Jeffree Star is really kind of a shit person, if you want to know the truth. I don't think he treats people very well. I think he lies left and right just to cover his own ass. I think he really is ultimately all about the money, and it really is about private jets and Gucci. I don't think that about Christie. I never have. I think Christie cares about the money as far as her security, okay? I don't think she lies out of her mouth left and right. I think she really thinks through whether or not she's going to address anything. And I've always thought that she was a pretty good person. And I think that's why I was so disappointed that she never came out and addressed these things. Not just as somebody that knew her, but as somebody that felt like, I mean, we talk about parasocial relationships. I loved watching her videos. I loved what she stood for. I loved what she had to say. So I was disappointed. You know, I was disappointed about this. So I went in and I watched this video yesterday. Now, This is 35 minutes to get, or 39 minutes to get into this whole video. But anyway, so she goes in here and she timestamps, which is something I never do, all of her points in her video. So the beginning, she starts talking about, is she going to build her sister a house? They're no longer building their sister a house on the property, which she didn't talk about building a school at all on the property, so I don't know about that, but she says the cost is too expensive. And so at the very end, she kind of jokes, and she says, maybe I'll learn to build a house myself, because that'll be a lot cheaper. She talks about contractors, that when they initially offered her sister to build the house, that it was a lot cheaper, but there's been a lot of personal things that have happened with the contractor, and she goes into that. She finishes talking about her sister's house build. Do you still keep up with anybody in the beauty community? She says not really, like where they're in group chats and stuff, but she doesn't really keep up with anybody there. Any future upcoming collabs? She says she has some exciting ones that are coming up. She talks about her son turning 4, what they're going to do with his school. She talks a lot about public and private education. This is where you can tell, and I relate to this, that Christy is so worried about anything that she says, because it's like you can tell she wants to put her kid in, like, well, it's interesting because I have a friend of mine that from high school that's actually a Waldorf teacher in Washington, and she talks about Waldorf schooling, and I thought, oh God, that would be so weird if my friend was like her son's teacher. But anyway, but Christy talks about private, public, all these different schools, and you could tell she's real nervous. She's like, I'm not dogging public schools. Girl, I live in Indianapolis. Nobody wants to put their kid in a private school or public school here in Indianapolis, okay? Listen, people are working 2 and 3 jobs to put their kids in private schools. Nobody wants to put their kids in a public school here in Indianapolis. And I'll have that conversation all day long. And I went to public schools, okay? But I mean, you could have that conversation. And this is what I used to love about Christy, was that she'd get on camera and she would say shit that I think, whether people agreed with it or disagreed with it, it was her truth. And I love that about Christy. But she says at the beginning of this video something. She says, I don't want to share a lot of personal stuff anymore because it's weaponized against me. And I thought, okay, well, but that's also what built your career, was you sharing personal shit. And I love that about Christy, that she shared so much personal shit. Yeah, I think I share a lot of personal shit and it's weaponized against me. But I also think that that's what makes me me, and that's what makes Christy Christy, was the sharing of the personal shit. It was, people are gonna find their people out there, and that was how that was what I related to with Christy, was that she would get in, I mean, and do a video and say, well, I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is how I feel. And sometimes I'd agree with her and sometimes I didn't, but at least she was sharing how she felt. And it felt like a conversation. Somewhere along the way, the conversation felt like it stopped. So then it goes into, what's the rudest celebrity you've met? And then she talks about, she's really never met any rudest celebrity. She actually tells a story about herself. And then she goes in and she talks about, somebody asked her about her religious beliefs and her journey. Then she goes in, talk about 2025 goals, plan for their property, sister's home travel plan. She wants to build like this little like mobile cabin. I don't know what that means, but it sounds cute. And then she goes in here to talk about disclaimer about taboo topics discussed. And so, which is really just like, I talked about some taboo topics today that I've never really talked about before in a video. The big part of this video is where she goes in and she talks about her religious history, okay, and her religious journey. And she's doing her makeup through the whole thing. And she's doing these get-readies with me. I just recently said in a video, I do not miss the get-readies with me. I did not realize I missed the get-readies with me until I watched this video of Christie's, okay? Now, what I'm going to say is probably going to surprise the shit out of about 95% of you. I loved this video of Christie's. I loved this video. This video seemed to me, I don't know what's going on with Christie right now, but this seemed like a return to the Christie that I loved. It even kind of inspired me, like, Peter, where do you need to go to, like, get back to where you were, like, having the best time of your life on YouTube? Oh my God, I cannot believe that I almost made it to an hour without the tripod falling, but then it did. Okay, so Christie gets into talking about her religious journey and her belief system, which was interesting to me, okay, because she goes deep with this. At the beginning of the video, she said she didn't want to share anything personal because it's weaponized against her, which, like I said, I totally understand that, okay? But the oversharing of her personal life was really what I loved about Christie's videos to begin with. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, this was not what I was expecting. And in all honesty, there's been a lot of videos of Christie's that I've watched in the last year where I felt like indirectly she was kind of trying to address some of these things, but didn't really want to address these kinds of things. So when she starts talking about, I mean, I'm fully aware that when you do a Q&A, you're picking and choosing which questions you answer, okay? I mean, I literally just read right down, but a lot of these people pick like 8 questions. They pre-pick them before the video. They go through, she said she put it on Instagram, so I'm like, okay, she's picking the questions she wants to answer. So a couple people had asked her about her religious beliefs. Well, she goes in and she tells this story about how she was raised, going to Sunday school, but they weren't like deeply religious. She talks about her mom getting sick. She talks about going to church camp because her mom just wanted, I got so emotional watching this video. I got so emotional with Christy talking about her mom like being sick and passing away when she was in high school. What that did to her spiritual beliefs. Now, for those of you that do not watch my vlog, and I talk a lot over there about my spiritual beliefs and aligned with 12-step and things like being in a 12-step program and things like that. And just last week I was talking about, I feel differently today, but I was just talking last week about, like, you can tell she's very hesitant to talk about it, which is interesting because I feel like that too. Like, I even said it in this vlog that I did last week that I don't want to push people away by talking about my spiritual beliefs or my belief in a higher power and things like that. But I was at a place last week where I felt like, God, where are you? Like, I said in a meeting last Tuesday night, a week ago, and I shared it on my vlog the next day, that in 30 years, I'm closer to being an atheist today than I've ever been in my life. I don't feel like that today. A lot has changed in the last week. I've gotten a lot of God moments, a lot of weird signs in the last week. But that was where I was at. But I was even scared to share that in my vlog because I thought, there are going to be some people out there that don't want to hear this, they don't align with this, blah, blah, blah. And like Christy, hey, believe what you want to believe. I ain't trying to convince nobody. I'm just sharing my experience. So I'm watching this, and from growing up, high school, her mom passing away, you know, getting out of partying after that, getting out of the church. She was going to youth group, going to church, partying after that, all this kind of stuff, meeting Zach being an atheist. She shares a lot about that, to having their son be born and Zach's spiritual beliefs starting to change and then he's starting to search and it was so profound, you guys. Like, I was watching this and like halfway through, I mean, I was just mesmerized. The authenticity of this conversation, and like halfway through it, I just was like, this is the Christy that I miss. This is the Christy that I miss, right? And I got done with that part of the video, and then she goes in and she talks about, because I was like, what's the taboo topics? Because I already seen it, and this is the taboo topic that she's talking about. I'm like, because she goes in there and she says, people have asked if I'm a fundamentalist. She's like, I'm not a fundamentalist. She's like, I'm the furthest from that. I'm all about love. And she goes in there and talks about, I'm searching, and she talks about reading the Bible, and she's trying to figure out what she is, and she's listening to sermons, and she's doing all this kind of stuff. I've been on spiritual journeys myself. 2 years after I got sober, you know, my sponsor said to me, what's your biggest fear? Because I didn't know what God was. I couldn't figure it out. I knew that. I'd seen people that had internalized that experience, but I had never internalized it. I never felt it inside of me. My sponsor said to me, what's your biggest fear? And I said, death. And which is not my biggest fear today, but he said, let's find a book that will help you get through your fear of death. So I picked the psychic Sylvia Browne's book, The Other Side and Back, which, by the way, even though I found out later she was a huge fraud, it really, really helped me. And then I went on this journey where I was reading a lot about Buddhism. I read, you know, The Way of the Pilgrim, about Christianity. My mom gave me a lot of books about Christianity to read. I read a lot of books about, you know, Hinduism and Islam and all kinds of things to come up with my own understanding. And she's talking about that. Hers is more of a Christian journey, but that's fine, right? And she talked about how when she started wearing a cross, a lot of people were turned off. And I thought, what a sad world that is, right? That we live in a world where if Christy wears a very small cross in videos, people are turned off by that. Just like I was afraid to share what my spiritual thing was. When anybody that watches my videos, my Peterisms videos, if I read meditations that are specifically spiritually based, I try to align them so anybody, I'll say the universe. So if you're an atheist, you get something out of it too. And she does this in this video, okay? And I almost kind of indirectly felt like this is kind of her way of addressing I love everybody, and no, I'm not a fundamentalist, and no, I'm not building this school on my property, and whatever. But what I didn't understand about it when I was watching it was that Christy 3 years ago would have come out and she would have said that. That's just the truth. Christy 3 or 4 years ago, even in the midst of going through some of the worst times of her life, she would have got on video and said, you know what, there's a lot being said about me supporting James Charles, you know, and I did not know the full extent of the story. And I did continue to follow him, even though I knew a little bit about it, because I didn't look that much into it. But since this has been brought to my attention, I have unfollowed him. And whether that looks performative or not, I don't give a shit. Because Christy has this ability about her that I absolutely love. And she even kind of did in this video where she's like, you know what? If the people don't like this and it pisses them off, I don't really know what to say. And she could have said that with this video with the James Charles thing. She could have said, and if it pisses people off that I followed him, I don't really know what to say. But I don't follow him anymore. If it looks performative, it looks performative. But I feel like it's the right thing to do. And you know what? That's it. And then when the trans thing came out, she could have just said what she said in this video today. I know there's a lot of stuff about, you guys don't know the whole backstory about why my kid was at this parade, and maybe he shouldn't have had that shirt on, and no, I don't align with it, or I'm not sure what I align with, okay? But listen, I'm about love. I'm searching, okay? And I'm all about love right now, and I love everybody, and I don't judge anybody, because she says this in this video, and I felt it to be true in her heart when I listened to it. I felt it to be true. It felt like a conversation, and she was sharing where she felt like she was coming from. And it was the first video of hers in a long time that I'd watched where I thought, Kristi and I really, like, as hard as I've come for her, like, maybe there are some things that I don't agree with her on that we could have a conversation about. I'm not wanting to have that conversation necessarily today, but I'm just saying that if we were sitting in the same space, I'm not trying to convince anybody, or have anybody convince me, but I feel like she's open to conversations today. I think what I'm disappointed in is that Kristi never felt that she could trust her audience to come on video and have those conversations. I don't know if she didn't trust herself or she didn't trust her audience. But as being one of her audience members, she could have shared that stuff with me. I would have respected that more. I think she was too afraid she would have lost numbers like crazy. Well, she lost numbers anyway because she didn't address it. And I think what's most disappointing to me is that she never even gave us a chance, you know? At all. I'm not talking about like on small issues. I'm talking about on big issues. Because I loved this video of Kristi's. I don't think these are taboo topics. These are topics that Kristi would have talked about 3 and 4 years ago. I loved her talking about this on here. It was so like insightful to see inside the mind of where Kristi is at today. And that this is all part of the big picture of why she feels the way that she does about her son and her marriage and building on her property and staying out there. I mean, it made sense. It like everything kind of clicked together. I don't think she really realized how big this part of the video, how important it really was, you know? And so my problem with her, I think, all along is really not necessarily what she stands by, because I don't know to this day. None of us do, because she hasn't come out. But it's the fact that she never came out and even gave her audience the opportunity, because it's not that, like anybody else, I feel like they owe us an answer or an apology. It's that the Kristi that I knew would have come out. And maybe that's part of the problem, is that we expect more out of the Kristis in the world. Just like people expect more out of me. Like other people can tweet shit out that if I tweeted out, I'd be ruined tomorrow. It's the same thing for Kristi. So maybe we expect more out of Kristi than we do out of the Jeffree Stars. You know, maybe we think, well, Kristi needs to be held to a higher standard because she is the voice of reason. She has been the voice of reason. I have felt that way. I don't know. Watching this video yesterday, it kind of made me sad because what I realized was I miss Kristi. I miss watching her videos, you know? And I wish that she wasn't so scared to add something to the conversation about James Charles, you know? Or about the LGBTQIA plus community from a Christian point of view, or how she got caught up in the middle of that. What a valuable conversation that could be. And we might not always agree on things. Listen, we might not agree, but at least the conversation's being had. And we're not afraid to have it because we're just trying to like make a buck or something, you know? I don't know. And I don't know, I guess in retrospect, it just was really kind of disappointed, you know? And I get that. I get that because years ago, I can remember, I've had people say to me, I hate you. I've had people say to me, your opinion sucks. I've had people say things to me about my voice. I've had people that love Trisha Paytas that can't stand me, and people that love Colleen Ballinger that can't stand me, or Shane Dawson and whatever, and they just come and they come and they come, and I get all that, right? But years ago, there was a bunch of lies that were put out about me, okay? And, you know, I talked to my sponsor at the time. I've addressed this in videos since, and my sponsor was like, you are not going to address this. You're just not. Like, you're not part of this. You're not going to address it. And my sobriety is primary in my life, so I did what my sponsor told me to do. And didn't come out and address it. And I got a lot of comments from people that said, I'm very disappointed in you. And so I had to live with that. You know, I had to live with that. Now, I've later since come out, because it was when people were saying I didn't have a master's degree, so I got in a video and I showed my master's degree. I even said, call my school. This is what people were disappointed in, that I didn't have a master's degree and all this kind of stuff. And I said, call my school. Call where I went to school. Ask them what year I graduated, okay? Ask them if I graduated from the master's in social work program. And a lot of people were like, I'm really disappointed in you, blah, 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 whatever. That statement hurt more that I'm disappointed in you. This is a really raw video. I'm really getting into it today in here, but maybe I needed to do this. That statement of, I'm disappointed in you, hurt more than people being like, I hate you, you're an asshole, blah, 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 your voice drives me crazy, you sound like a 6-year-old. That, okay, I get all that. That's petty, right? That statement hurt me more than anything, because I'm like, you're disappointed over me over something that I was told I couldn't come out and address, because I wasn't going to drag a bunch of other people into it, you know, like my past supervisor and past sponsors and, you know, and things like that. That's what my sponsor told me. And so it was hard, right? Like, that was a hard period of time to hear that from people that really liked me. I think that's a hard thing. I think when somebody is outwardly just, you know, I think it's an issue of expectations, that we have different expectations for people that we watch online, you know? And I think that's just a reality. And I wrote in here last night in my notes, I guess in retrospect, I was just disappointed. We expect more from some influencers than we expect from others. And like I shared before, I think it's similar to me. I think people have higher expectations for me than they would have on somebody else, you know? It's like, and I see that happen where I'm questioned about every little thing, but then there's somebody over here that they're like never questioned about anything, and they put out like loads of shit, and I'm like, seriously? You know? And, but like, oh, I didn't, but I didn't do this or I didn't do that or whatever. I'm not going to get into all that. But anyway, I think there's different expectations for different people. But in a way, like stepping back from it, like now that feels kind of like a compliment, right? Because for me, the fact that I do hold Christie to a higher regard than I do Jeffree Star. Some of the shit that's coming out of Jeffree Star's mouth does not surprise me at all. I don't care if it's for verbose attention or if he's just trying to say the most, you know, quote-worthy thing or whatever. I'm not surprised by it. None of it surprises me. With Christie, some of the things that she hasn't addressed do surprise me. And so maybe we do hold people to a higher standard. Maybe that needs to stop. I don't know. But what I do know is this, okay? Is that watching her video yesterday, I realized I miss Christie. And I think I will probably start giving her another chance, you know, to like, not that she proves me anything or needs to prove anything to me or owes me anything. But maybe I need to look between the cracks to see what's really there, you know? Maybe I need to listen to really what she's saying right, instead of looking for what she's saying that's wrong. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to lower my expectations, you know? Because just like me, Christie's just a human being as well. And I hope that at some point, Christie might come out and address these things. Because I think the thing that disappoints me the most about it is, not that I felt like Christie needed to explain herself or answer for these actions. Maybe that's how it came across, and maybe that's how I felt at the time. I don't know, it's changed. Today, I feel like Christie had so much to offer to the conversation. Maybe a different perspective, maybe a different point of view. And I just wish that she had. And she doesn't have to do that. She doesn't have to do any of it. But she's somebody that I always loved being part of the conversation in the past. And I loved listening to her points of view on things because she always shed light on something I hadn't thought about. And I think that had she come out and talked about these things that were painful for her to talk about, you know, I heard a writer say years and years and years ago, talking about writer's block. Writer's block is when you know that there's this one thing you need to write about, but you don't want to write about it because it's too painful. I think that's true too, as well, you know? I was told years and years ago that the one video that you need to make is the one that you don't want to make. And, you know, I've talked about a lot of personal things today on here, and I'm already feeling like maybe I shouldn't post this video. But I think this is an important video to post. We all change and we all grow, you know? And my observation of Christie today is a lot different than my observation of Christie was a year ago. And I think the one thing that people think is that I have this true hatred for Christie. I don't. I wish Christie and her family the very best. The absolute very best. Christie is somebody that I loved and adored for years and years and years. I just was disappointed in her, you know? I just wanted her to be part of the conversation. I wanted to hear where she was coming from. I wanted to understand it. And I didn't want the one conversation I had with her to be proven later to be a lie. That hurt, you know? That hurt. So, but I don't hate her, and I'm glad that she's finding her footing and she's finding her grounding. I just wish she would have offered to the conversation. Anyway, I would suggest that you go watch this video of hers from yesterday, the Q&A. I thought it was done very, very well. The discussion where she talks about her religious history and where she's searching now, I thought it's something that a lot of people relate to. I think she should have just done a specific video about that. She even kind of hints at that. I think she should have just done that as a video on its own. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.